one thing he's got to do first. Yes?
Cancel my one-on-one with Julia.
We're gonna watch someone canceling his one-on-one with the VP right here live.
CVP of Developer Division.
With the CVP of Developer Division live right here on Twitch. He's not actually here. No. Oh my gosh, I didn't put that layer on the layout here, but yes, they're hammering the Scott sound effect. How's it going?
Thanks.
All right. I don't have that layer easily accessible here that I can drop on, but yes, the folks in the chat room they're calling for you. Look at them there. Trouble. They're firing the yes because of course Scott is here. So good to see you. Go ahead, slide in a little bit. You're just off screen.
Let me cancel Julia first here.
So, schedule management while you wait. Ha, who, or goo? No, it's who. Yes, of course. Oh my gosh. You're a busy man this week. Very busy. Lots of cool things that have been happening.
Lots of good stuff this week.
Oh my goodness. Build is like... I feel like it's almost the Super Bowl for our developer content. You got to show up. You got to be ready because we're hitting the ground running with big announcements, big roadmap, planning, discussions that aren't necessarily things that we're doing right now, but they're the things you're going to see over the next 18 months.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part about Build's not about what we ship today or what's on the. It's really what we're going to ship next year and the year after and the year after and the year after. That's what makes Build cool to me.
Yeah, there's absolutely. Those discussions that happen, right? It's not about code samples really here. It's great to have good demos, but having discussions and interactions around, here's the things we're looking at doing next, and have the customers, the developers, come through and say, this is where this is going to solve a problem for me. This is where it's going to apply and do great things for my organization, make us better, faster, use less resources, so they don't have to buy as much Azure. That might not be the best thing. We want them to use more Azure.
Oh my!
Because we're big fans of Azure. Let me tell you.
Here you go, Jeff. Here's my cancellation.
Oh dear Lord. All right. Can you do me a favor? Can somebody out there? Can you clip this? Scott and I saying, "Hey, how's it going there, Julia? We're doing a thing here at Build." And we'll send that link along that we're over here chatting. So, some of the big announcements. Of course, we had to announce my favorite. .NET Conf is coming up in September, and that's more of a training event. That's not so much a discussion event. That's a training thing where we're going to show demos and get people things that they can act on.
And that'll be the RTM of .NET Core 3 as well.
Exactly.
I mean, it's the out for .NET Core 3.
It's like I was leading him into it. That's when we're going to release it, and that's going to be at the end of September. We're really excited about doing another 3-day event, and we're going to do the 24 hours straight again. All around, we're going to bring in folks from all the different time zones to chat and give great presentations here.
So do we know how much community versus how much Microsoft we're going to do?
So we're looking at doing half-hour sessions this year. And we're probably going to do, for the first day or two, where we have just 8 hours of folks in studio. We'll probably do, we'll have somebody giving a keynote who knows a thing or two about launching .NET and C# and Xamarin, as we do. And then we're looking at probably 16, so there'll be 32 half-hour sessions from Microsoft folks walking through and explaining and showing some of the great stuff that has happened and great samples that you can learn. But then we're going to go into 24 hours straight, 48 sessions of community content, live, around the clock. So no matter what time zone you're in, you're not just in Pacific time zone, you'll get great developer content from .NET Conf.
When are we going to open up for submissions from the community?
We're...
Love to put Jeff on the spot here.
Yeah, really. Wow. Man. You are really...
I was just talking to Ed, and Ed wants to come submit something, and he's like, when?
You know what, not just Ed, but we want to make sure we bring in all the live coders, give them an opportunity to talk, because they're phenomenal at teaching here on Twitch, on live coding streams. Typically, we open those things in June, and we'll leave it open for about a month and a half, so that folks will hear by the end of July, we're going to bring you in, we want to make sure things are working, so that in August, beginning of September, we can do those tech checks, make sure folks' content is all lined up and aligns with what we want to say about .NET Core 3, about Azure, all the great stuff for the event at the end.
Well, the nice thing about that timeline is we have the RC of .NET Core 3 in July. So it means which means people will have plenty of time to be on. Those bits shouldn't change. The API shouldn't change from July to September, which means if you build something in July,
you should only get fixes.
It should just get fixes going forward, right? So it should actually stick.
Okay.
So
Brad Wilson, we know Brad Wilson says, is Scott trying to start a green polo trend? That'd be quite the pair. Scott in the red shirt and then Scott in the green shirt. Maybe. That could be a thing.
Maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Not speaking today, so green is
green's okay, and you're not in front of a green screen.
There's no stress.
Yeah. CFP timing. Yeah, Carrie Payette likes hearing about CFP timing. Robert Tables is here. Good to see you, Robert Tables. Robert Tables is one of our live coder friends who works with containers during the week, and on the weekends he does a little bit of either IoT work or he was building a keyboard last weekend on stream. Really neat stuff to see there. Yes, Michael Jolly. Docker is absolutely what we'll hear Robert Tables talking about here on stream. So, do you have some slides you wanted to share?
I thought we
have an HDMI cable over there if you want to share.
We could. Thought we'd talk about a few of the slides. Just
absolutely. We can go into slides. I'm prepared. Can you believe it?
I try to get you.
Put me on the spot.
Put you on the spot. I didn't expect you to have cables available.
Oh,
so.
I've got all the things here. Let me just double check that connection. And it is right there. I'm going to bring in that display. Look at that. It's like I planned this. It's right there. There's your slides right there.
You're just too good, man. I don't know what to.
This is a professional shtick here that we're doing. Right there.
You're scaring me. I know it's.
Okay, so .NET schedule. This I think is pretty interesting that we've committed to this.
Actually,
We've changed it. We've changed the way we're going to schedule and release .NET.
Well, let's first off talk about, we're build, so we're months and months away from the RTM of .NET Core 3.
Yeah.
One of the biggest questions customers ask us all the time is, when is .NET Core 3 coming? When's it coming? When's it coming? So we did at Build actually announce our RC in July, our RTM in September, and then our LTS in November.
LTS, for folks who aren't familiar with the three-letter acronym, long-term support.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we should actually talk about this because this is one of the areas that I hear the most confusion about in the .NET space, which is, as you said, long-term support. So what does that actually mean? Long-term support for .NET Core means you have 3 years of support, and when the next LTS comes out, you have 1 year to migrate from the current LTS to the new LTS.
So you have 3 and then 1 more to do that migration.
Right.
Okay. I got it. Chat room, can you do me a favor? Can you grab a clip of that real quick so that when we do have other folks asking questions, we can share a little bit of here's Scott talking about the LTS process.
Developers.
Thank you. Is that Lelit Me? Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate the follow.
I used to always, when I saw Steve do that, I was afraid he was going to have a heart attack. So because he would turn beet red and run around. We have this, company meeting every year, and he would go do this, and I'm like, please don't drop. Please don't drop.
Oh, my gosh. That'd be a little...
The room's laughing here because they've all seen it as well. And if you...
Yeah. The room here has been a little crazy today. Let me tell you. Okay, that's the next 6 months of what's going on with that.
But as a .NET developer, you have 2 choices. You can stay on the LTS, and once you're on like the current LTS is 2.1,
okay,
which means you can stay on 2.1 for a long time and just get security patches and bug fixes on 2.1, or you can decide to ride the faster path, which is you could be on the 2.2 release,
sure,
or you could be on the initial 3.0 release.
Okay.
And for those, if you want patches, you need to stay on the newest thing.
Sure, you're opting in to a more aggressive timeline.
Right.
And because things install side by side with .NET Core, you've got great flexibility.
Great flexibility, but it means when 3.0 ships, patches to 2.2 will stop.
Yeah.
And you need to be on 3 to get the patches for that. Or if you stay on 2.1, that's the LTS right now. Those patches will keep coming until a year after we actually ship the 3.1 LTS.
Okay.
The next thing is, I try to explain this, servicing model. We've been shipping .NET Cores all over the place. The first one was in June of 2016.
Yeah.
I think we followed up with a 1.1 in November of 2016.
It was quick, yeah.
We had a 2.0 the next year.
At right was for right about Build 2017.
It was right after Build, I believe. But
And
you notice those dates are all kind of over the place, and it's hard to plan. And so one of the reasons customers ask me about this LTS stuff, they're like, well, since I don't know when the next LTS is going to be, I don't really feel I'm comfortable knowing that I'm going to have to move at some point, but I don't know when I'm going to have to move. And so at Build, we also tried to address that by basically saying we are going to go to an annual cadence.
Love it. That is really cool to see, because that means that I can plan for the next version of .NET. I can see here's when the LTSs are coming out, and when I can anticipate and plan my enterprise budget for I've got to do a migration at this point.
And it helps everybody. I mean, imagine Azure.
Yes.
Azure can be ready for .NET Core 3 because they know the dates it's going to happen. People like Progress in the room here, they can be ready for .NET Core 3 because they know the dates.
There's so many folks in the room here. It's amazing. They're all, gosh, they crowded around breakfast at Build here. It's so amazing. Listen to them. My gosh.
These are crazy people in here.
Our friend Hugo, thank you so much, Hugo. He grabbed that clip of you explaining what LTS is. That is an important concept for folks to learn. Sarah, Didi, can someone post that? Do you mind posting that to Twitter so that we can explain that, make sure that that important message gets out to some of our .NET developer friends? Thank you. Yeah, very rowdy crowd over there, but Hugo says, make sure you pipe down. All right, so we skipped 4 here.
We did skip 4.
Okay. Why would we skip 4?
We thought 4 would be confusing, to have a .NET Core 4 and a .NET Framework 4.8.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We have 2 4s at the same time. Yeah. And we also had I'm going to close this out for a second, and let's go to the...
I can hide that so that folks aren't seeing exactly what you're typing around there. Yeah, let me go over here for a second while you're finding what it is you need to look up there.
Okay. I was gonna bring up. I'm trying to bring up if the hotel Wi-Fi works good enough. I will bring up.
I'm sucking up the hotel Wi-Fi here with our broadcast. Oh yeah, you're on.
Yeah, but it's not coming up. So it's the circle of patience.
The circle of patience spinning on Scott's machine while we're waiting for that to load.
But as you talk about this 4.0 and 4.8 thing, there was a blog post that went up on Monday, and it basically said .NET Core is the future of .NET.
It is.
And because of that, we wanted to skip to 5.
Okay.
So 5 is the bigger number.
Sure.
And .NET 5 or .NET Core 5 is obviously the future and the latest version of .NET.
So that's going to make it a little bit clearer for us when we get into that .NET 5 world that, okay, 4.8 and .NET Core 3, they're the previous versions because we know .NET 5 is a thing. Now, is there any concern because .NET Core, way back when we were originally talking about Project K, right? There for a while, the name and the numbering of .NET Core or .NET 5, the ASP.NET 5 was floated a little bit out there, and it was a little confusing. You know, or do we have any concerns about that? I mean, we're looking at almost a 5-year gap between.
I don't think we're locked solid on the naming.
Okay.
Like for example, is it going to be .NET 5 or .NET Core 5?
Right.
You know, we don't do anything today without doing a bunch of user testing.
Yes. There we go. We'll show the blog post there.
Yeah, so this blog post was basically put out to kind of talk about the journey we've taken along the way with .NET Core 1 primarily being, hey, we want to be open source, cross-platform, kind of reboot the platform and CLI first, side by side, you know, solve all the problems that we learned over the journey since shipping the first version of .NET Framework.
And those 7 tenets, right, around why we decided to do .NET Core, they really landed well in that first version, and they've only gotten better.
Yeah, and we continue to refine and make them better and better. But you know, 1.0 was primarily a web release because there was not a lot of other workloads you could really do on it. There was console. Sure. And people made it do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, they did.
But then 2.0 comes. We bring a bunch of APIs. 3.0 comes, and we bring desktop, WinForms,
that Windows workload,
WPF,
Yes.
Entity Framework 6. And even though we're not bringing all the other frameworks, we don't have, Web Forms, WCF, and Windows Workflow. A lot of folks don't realize we actually tried to bring all those. And the estimate on System Web was 3 years, I think, was what it was going to take us to port it. And then we realized if we did port it, it was not going to be compatible.
it wouldn't have been the same.
It was not going to be the same. And so if you just can't, if you port it and it doesn't work the same way, there's no IIS. It was so bolted to native code and IIS and a bunch of constructs that would have changed. Even the namespaces and stuff like that would have changed, which it would have broke binary compatibility.
Folks like Progress who have these great widgets that you can use, the controls for ASP.NET, they wouldn't work.
Right.
They'd have to rebuild them, and you would, like you said, you don't have an upgrade path again.
I really learned this as we started doing WinForms.
The WinForms for .NET Core 3.
WinForms for .NET Core 3.
Okay.
So I showed a preview of the designer for WinForms in my talk on Monday.
Yeah.
We've been working on that for many months now.
Oh, yeah.
And there's still many more months of it left.
I've been hearing the hand wringing from over that side.
And even in that case, our friends at Progress are going to have to rewrite the designers for their controls because it's not going to be binary compatible. They're shaking their heads over here.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why. You can't really load two .NETs in the same process. So the designer actually has to go and spin up an external process with .NET Core. It will then render the WinForm screen, and then we take that HWin and we stick it into Visual Studio.
For folks who don't know, HWin, that's the handle from Windows.
Right.
For that.
And it's really weird. Windows has crazy features where you can take the HWin from one process and stick it into another process.
Oh, wow.
So when we were seeing the screen, I can bring it up if you just hide me for a second to
Give me 1 second.
load some stuff here.
Absolutely. Look at this. Demos on the fly while you wait. From who? From Sky! Absolutely. Yeah. End lurk. I don't have an end lurk command there, Chef Brent, so sorry. Carrie Payette says, I heard Ed Charbonneau cry a tear back there. Yeah, maybe. Maybe a little. Of course, Ed's really a big fan of things like Blazor, right? And we love seeing that Blazor's now a product. We've taken the experiment tag off of it. We're going to ship it with .NET Core 3 on the server side. While we're rounding out the edges, we're putting a good polish on the things that are happening client side, and that'll be released sometime in the future after ASP.NET Core 3 lands.
So let's take a look at this, Jeff.
Absolutely. Here we go. We'll bring up your screen. There we go.
And I just want people to even see the name.
Oh, man. Look at that.
Remote WinForm Designer.
Okay.
And that's because, as I said before, if I hide that, you can see the Remote WinForm Designer for Visual Studio. and that's because when you open the form, we literally are launching
another process.
So if I double-click that launched another process.
Okay.
And then we took that HWin from the other process and we stuck it into this window. And it said, Windows lets you do this crazy thing where you're showing up the view from another process.
Yeah.
And then as I bring up the property sheets over here and it fills in, that is then going and getting the properties from the other process, and we're doing a remoting back and forth between the two processes to make this work. And so we're like the Progress folks will have to change things. Typically when you write a designer today, it assumes I can just go touch everything inside of Visual Studio.
Yes.
Well, there's no form to touch because it's not really here. So you have to. There'll be a channel where they'll have to make calls out to the remote process and say, "Bring me the properties."
Okay.
Or I'll send something back over there saying, "Change one of the properties."
And that'll change a little bit of our Visual Studio extension model,
right?
So that you can interact with those things.
So even though for the most part, as a developer, your WinForm code will just run as is. If you're building controls and your controls have designers, it's going to require DevExpress and Progress and Component One and everybody to actually
Take a couple extra steps here.
do some work.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Remote wizardry, says our friend Chef Brent from Twilio. Absolutely, a little bit of wizardry, pushing that stuff back and forth. Remoting. I haven't heard that people talk about that since, gosh, the days of COM and before WCF. We're getting back into remoting again. I mean, tremendous technology.
And
But
the demo at Build was kind of fake too.
what? What?
Well, I'll show you this. I can change stuff in the property sheet,
Yeah.
but if I go look at the source code,
Don't quote that. Don't clip that. It was not fake. It was an amazing demo.
I don't think any of that shows up in the source code. No, it's not serializing that back to the source code yet.
Okay.
Once again, that's just showing you that this is a hard problem, and we would have had this exact same issue with ASP.NET Web Forms.
Okay.
We would all of these techs would have had that issue.
But it's. I wonder if as we have to bring in remoting to be able to push things back and forth, because it's .NET that runs Visual Studio and .NET Core that runs some of these newer components that we're bringing in here, will that improve our performance, our overall performance of Visual Studio? Because you're now pushing some of those things that were traditionally in memory, in process for Visual Studio,
Right.
now side by side.
Yeah, we've been pushing stuff out of Visual Studio for a while. So we've been pushing a bunch of stuff out of the same process for a while.
I'm laying the softballs up here so the boss can
Making
hit
it
them out
so
of the
easy
park.
for me. It's just terrible.
Thanks so much to our new follower out there. That was Last Members. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in the chat room there. Robert Tables has... you linked the clip there a little funny in chat. Try again there. All right, so, yeah, that does look a little weird with the form. But we have seen demos. We have been able to see a little bit of being able to upgrade our existing applications to Windows Forms with .NET Core 3, and it's not too bad a process.
That's not too bad of a process. I actually was looking at a project on the show floor this week called .vvm.
Yes, they just joined the .NET Foundation.
Yeah, I'm super happy.
Our friend Tomas,
Yes, Tomas
runs that.
And that looks like if you're a web form customer and you actually want to port a web form application to .NET Core, that looks like it could be interesting tech to do that. In fact, I told Tomas that when Build's over, I want to go try it. We actually, while I was on the showroom floor, we took a web form application with a grid, and over about 15 minutes, we ported it from .NET Framework to .NET Core on .vvm.
Yes.
And he has controls in that toolkit. The controls look very similar to the controls that we have in web forms.
Yep, and they use Knockout.js.
Yeah.
From our friend Steve Sanderson.
The binding syntax a little different than what you would expect in web forms, but it felt pretty normal to me. So I think if you're a web form customer, that's going to be an interesting way if you want to take one of those forward, you could do that.
Yeah.
I think Blazor is also something that feels very familiar to web forms because it's web forms was a component model.
Yes.
And we haven't had a component model in any of our web stuff for a while, and so as you play with Blazor, it feels it is components. That's why Telerik and /Progress has controls, and the DevExpress folks do as well.
They do.
Is because it's component based. With components, you can make controls.
It felt when the first time I saw Blazor with server side interactions.
Let me for a second.
I will absolutely cut back to this. The first time that I saw Blazor with the server side interactions, it felt like when we had the old Ajax panels with web forms.
Yes.
Whatever controls were inside of that div, it would traffic back and forth.
It would do all the
diffs. JavaScript to paint on the screen, and we're doing the same thing, but with SignalR now. It automatically wires up the SignalR hub, so it listens for those changes and repaints just that section of the screen for us. And I understand that we're going to be able to do that step up, that upgrade from server side to client side with minimal code changes.
Yes.
To be able to support that.
Yeah, for the most part, if you build a server-side Blazor application today, you should be able to basically flip it into a client-side WebAssembly Blazor application without I hope any or
Without
very little
significance.
code changes to your application. So I would tell customers, start using Blazor now, and then when we have the WebAssembly stuff ready to go, just flip the switch, and you're going to get the high perf, small size.
running on the client inside everybody's browser. And I think it's funny, the irony that Spectre and Meltdown, when they hit last summer, they forced everybody to upgrade their operating system, to upgrade their browser. And now even Grandma, who had to force upgrade her browser, has WebAssembly support now, on these older machines that might not have gone out of their way and integrated with.
So take a look at this.
Oh my gosh, what is that? Telerik Grid.
So this is the Telerik Grid
Okay.
for Blazor.
Okay.
And so this is the actual stock file new Blazor application. Let's run it.
So file new, but you flipped it so it's using the Telerik Grid.
Yeah, this used to be just a for loop.
Yeah.
It was a for each that ran over the data and basically spit out a table
Right.
on the screen.
.NET new Blazor, and you'd got something that looked like that, but it didn't have the Telerik control in there.
And so I've got the Telerik controls in there now. And so if you take a look at this, now I've got
you
these
get the-
nice headers across here.
The filter.
I've got the filters here. Pretty slick stuff.
I love.
I can sort. Look at this.
Yeah. And it's all client side.
And if you look at it, if you look at the source code for this, wow, this looks a lot like web forms.
Yeah. Right.
There's your grid. It's taking the data from the forecast. It's got pageable true, sortable true, filterable true.
Your data binding to it. I love that. Just data equals forecasts, and it knows how to bind to it.
And you can see here's the types that we have here. Here they are bound up here, field, field, field. There's the title. Here's a little fancier one over here.
To do formatting.
Do
Okay.
some formatting to a short date string. Are you afraid the world's falling down?
No, I'm looking at the code up there.
But I think,
Scott doesn't see it. I don't know.
I do see it. But anyways, this is very web forms looking.
Yes, absolutely. It's got that same directive type feel that I might have with Angular.
Yes.
I really like seeing simpler code and getting a lot more functionality out of it without having to think. Bring in somebody else who's already done all the coding for me, sorting, filtering. I don't have to make those round trips. It does it all for me.
It looks great too.
Oh, so and I know
I mean,
they've got
that looks beautiful.
for out of the box not applying anything. Not bad at all. And I understand they've got different themes that they can drop in there to support Bootstrap and what's the one, material theme, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Really neat.
But if you're a web form customer, this is not going to feel weird to you.
No.
This is your page load down here in your functions block, and this is your controls up here at the top.
I love it's just on init async, and it's an asynchronous process, right? Folks don't really appreciate the asynchronous capabilities of their applications, their methods that are running out there. Take advantage of it. Let it do its work, and then report back when it's done doing its thing.
But this isn't bringing any of the weird state management we had in web forms either. So this, there's no view state here. All that stuff is. So I want to be very clear. There's no postbacks.
Right.
So I want to be very clear. This is not bringing some of the parts that we didn't like in the later phases of web forms back. This is still modern Razor,
model binding,
C#, web
Very
programming.
cool stuff.
Very cool stuff. So.
Slateboard asks, you can do web stuff in C#? This is new to me. Absolutely, Slateboard. You can use C# to both write things that run on the server, that run inside of either controllers or inside of components with the Blazor capabilities. ASP.NET Core Razor pages you can use to write your content. But then you can do formatting right there in these templates inside of a functions block like you see here.
Let's look at a simpler one here. So this is a button.
Yep.
And you'll see that we have a p tag here, current count, and we have a variable. So all we have to do is, you see the variables defined here in the C# block. If you want to use any C#, you put an @ sign in front of it inside the text in the HTML.
Yep.
So @current count means print the value of that
Output here.
integer right there. And this is just a regular button kind of element in HTML, but it's got an on-click, and that on-click, instead of calling JavaScript, I have an @ sign here saying, don't call JavaScript, call this C# function.
Yeah, and Visual Studio is helping us out with that by changing what were HTML elements with the burgundy P and H1. Now it's the bold purple there for button and on-click to indicate.
Yeah, so let's play with that for a second.
Sure.
So we have a button, nothing special there. It's not highlighted any way different.
Yeah.
It's only when I would put the on-click, it turned blue.
It turned purple, yeah.
Or purple, colorblind Mr. Hunter. And that's because now we know that you're trying to call some C# from here.
Yes.
And so we've kind of taken it over.
And now it's going to run inside of a .NET process.
Right. And the cool thing about this, too, is we were trying to keep the HTML syntax. So, if you look back in the web forms world, everything was a control. So it felt like you weren't writing HTML. You were writing
a mishmash
of stuff.
And then when we did MVC, we had HTML helpers, which had really ugly embedded C# syntax.
Right. So we created this Razor syntax many years ago. I think it was around 2010, where we blended C# and HTML together in the same layout. So I think it looks
and now
beautiful.
the tag helpers capabilities that you see here like this, that was part of ASP.NET Core. And now it's becoming a little bit more pervasive.
Yeah, this would have been add HTML.button or something like that before. It would have been, once again, been fake HTML. Now you actually see the markup just like you do, but you can call C# from it. And as you were saying before, this is actually a SPA application. So if it's still running over there, when I click that button, the page isn't redrawing or whatever.
Yeah.
What's going on is I click that button, a signal is sent to the server saying the button was clicked. The button event fires on the server. We render the server side, we do a diff between the two, we send the delta back up, and it changes the 1 or 2 characters on the screen.
That area.
So
nice.
it's an awesome programming model. Now you get your controls. So if you're a web form developer, I do think Blazor is
it's a comfortable way to move forward.
Should be a comfortable way to move forward. If you're WCF developer, we're shipping gRPC.
Yes. Okay.
With, in fact, let's go back to Visual Studio. And if I do File New, I've got Preview 5 of .NET Core 3 on my machine.
And that was just released this week, right?
It was, yes. It was released on Monday.
Fantastic. So make sure you check out .NET Core 3 Preview 5.
So let's create an ASP.NET Core application. This is a misnomer right now because I have to create an ASP.NET Core application to get to these templates.
Our friend in the chat room, Binary Chef, says is waving goodbye to JavaScript and I guess you're gonna jump in to .NET here in the browser. Come on in, Binary Chef.
Come on in.
The water's fine. It's going to be terrific. There's that Blazor logo.
But
and
here's
gRPC service.
gRPC services here.
Okay. Let's see here. Yep, it does compile to WebAssembly, and it is supported by all the major browsers. Thanks for helping out there, Corey. Still need to hop on this Blazor train, says Chef Brent. Yeah, oh yeah. It is becoming more and more compelling here. Absolutely. Waiting for the preview of .NET Core 3 on the Mac that doesn't wreck Xamarin, though. .NET Core 3.
That was actually supposed to, there was an update to Visual Studio for Mac that happened on Monday as well.
Okay.
So we did have a bug where if you had a preview of .NET Core 3 on a machine with Visual Studio for Mac on it, it would break things.
Okay.
That is supposed to be fixed. If I can run off of this, I'll be right back. I'm going to go verify this.
We're gonna look at this. As requested, we're going to verify that that's fixed. Oh my gosh.
I have a Mac.
Do you want to bring up? We can connect the Mac in instead. Do you have? It's in. What do you have on the side there? It's the. No, I have a connector. Fantastic. Yeah, Binary Chef is sending thunderous applause like that. How about that? That's pretty good. Live updates. Oh yeah, we're gonna.
We just roll.
We just make things.
This is not prepared.
Not prepared. Seriously, this is the essence of live coding here on Twitch. We're literally going to open this up here. Live report says Pindax. Oh yeah, you're right, Binary Chef. This is why not just Twitch, but live video is so awesome because you asked a question, and we're gonna dive in and go right after.
We just pull a Mac out of a bag.
Let's see what
Let's
happens.
see what happens.
So I've got us on the full screen here before we jump in.
Just give me a sec to get this. Let's just talk for a minute while I
Yeah.
boot up and get it on the network.
Absolutely. Breaking news, live on the scene with Jeff Fritz. Oh my goodness. Visual Studio 2019 is out, but to do Blazor, you got to use the preview version. Yes, and the preview version is free to use. You get a 90-day license for any of the SKUs, Enterprise, Professional, or Community. But you'll always be able to get Community free. Thank you, PC Williams Dev. We appreciate the follow. We want to make sure that there's always a version available for you to use for free. So that's what that Community version is for. So, is there any news on the WASM payload being smaller than the 15 megs it is right now for a Hello World app? Yes, Voigtkamp Phil.
So that will come. We hoped.
You're a little off screen.
Sorry.
There you go.
That will definitely come. We hope to have. We wanted to actually do a demo of the new. So right now we're bringing a pretty big runtime, and we're doing some. We're actually interpreting code versus actually. I'm just booting up here.
I was going to say you're not.
I know.
Okay. It is, yeah, Robert Tables, that's because it's actually sending the entire DLL down.
Right.
So we're trying to invest in linker technology.
We'll use linker and a bunch of other tech to make it smaller, and we know we can get it into the multiple meg size.
Okay. Single-digit meg.
Yes, not
That's
crazy.
the goal. Yep. And then with long-term expiration headers on there, like you can do on the web, it should make that experience a lot better. Hugo says 15 meg, so do avoid Node and Node modules. I see what you did there. I see what you did there, Hugo. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so.
And I don't have the JavaScript sound effect with me today, so I'm not gonna. Yeah, I'm not gonna drop that on folks. It's in your other Twitch. What? Thanks. Over there, they're mocking me, as it were. But I just said it. I don't have it. I do have it. I did say it, but I don't have it with me, Hugo. So. Shit. The entire Blazor Hello World is only 2.1 megabytes, says Ed Charbonneau. Yeah. npm install everything -G. Yeah. Way to go, Chef Brant. All right. Yeah, the live audience, the heckling, I'm sure you can hear what's going on there. They're making the horse sounds for me. Thank you, Binary Chef.
Okay. So let's roll the dice here.
See if we can. There we go. Look at that. And can you push up the font size?
I will in a second.
Thank you, sir. And then I will cut to your screen. Let's see here. Looking forward to using Blazor for my post-grad capstone project in a few weeks' time, says DNet78. Remember, it's not a fully supported. It's open source, and it's in preview. Of course, .NET Core 3, you're going to get better support on server side, but want to make sure that we set your expectations properly, manage those.
Does that help the font?
Helped a bit, yes.
Okay.
There we go. All right,
Let's try this.
There's Visual Studio 2019 for Mac.
And let's create a new solution. Now I want to show everybody that I do have .NET Core 3.0.0 Preview 3 on this machine.
Okay. So it's a couple versions back.
This used to basically break all of Visual Studio for Mac for building .NET Core applications.
Let's see if it works.
Let's try this. Good.
Ed Charbonneau says, npm install on a OneDrive folder will create a black hole that implodes the known universe.
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
I don't think the npm install does what you think it does. Add git init to that npm folder just for fun. No, don't, dear Lord. Oh gosh.
It might not be fixed.
This version of .NET Core SDK is not supported.
Well, that's a good message. So let's try putting a newer version of .NET Core 3 on.
So we're going to upgrade .NET Core 3 live on the fly
And
for the Mac. Here we go. Yeah, Hugo, we're going to do the thing here. There's Preview 5.
Don't want Windows.
Nope, we're on the Mac. We need some groovy theme music. Do I have it over here? Hugo just gifted the Corey Weathers a subscription. Thanks so much for doing that. Here's what I'm going to do while you're downloading and installing here. We're going to make sure we have some appropriate installing and compiling sound effects. No, that's
the hotel Wi-Fi is blazingly fast.
It is.
It's slowly creeping across the screen.
You're killing my frames here, sir. That's right. Yeah. There we go. What? They're taking pictures of their shoes over here. Oh my goodness.
Let's be very clear. We have not degraded over here. It's not they.
Oh.
We'll have to talk to James and see if he can make us a Xamarin app for taking pictures of shoes.
There we go. Yeah. Talk to our friend James Montemagno. He's another one of our live coding friends here.
We should have see if we can have a public shoe gallery that everybody can use their Xamarin app.
Oh my gosh. Identify folks at Build by their shoes.
If we do it like a signal art, it'd be sure.
Shoe R. I see what you
Sure.
did. Yeah. Okay. Our friend the binary, the binary streamer here has visited us. How are we finding Microsoft Build? Build has been it's been a fun event this year. We're only 2 days in. We've got another day of great Build developer content coming up here. I'm going to be visiting our friends at the Visual Studio booth in about a few hours, and we're going to build a .NET Core application that adds functionality to my favorite hardware, the Elgato Stream Deck here. And we're going to stream that live from the Visual Studio booth on the floor of Microsoft Build. So I hope you stick around a little bit later there. Chef Brent says, "Shoe R announced." Points to you, Mr. the Chef Brent. There he is.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
We should build a shoer. I think it's
Yeah, and our friend the binary chatter there is resubscribing with Twitch Prime, and we'll make a donation to Veterans Who Code. Thanks so much for that.
we could live code. Sure.
We could live code, sure.
We get James on to do the mobile part. I'll come on and do the back end.
We could do something like that. Absolutely.
And we could have a shoer.
Okay, if we were to bring in our friend Brady Gaster and his Birkenstocks.
He has those?
With socks.
Oh, wow. I'm disturbed
I'm
now.
sorry. I was, yes, deeply disturbed there for a second. Oh my gosh. Gifter announced. No, not Gifter. My goodness. What are we referring to there? I'm trying to catch back up. Sure. It's a sure thing, says Hugo. Yeah, I see what you've done there. Sure. Thanks so much for choosing. Yes. There we go.
It doesn't let me do a 3.0, which is fine.
The blog post. I hope Fritz is going to wear sparkle platforms to go with the jacket. No. I've actually got those shoes with the goldfish in them. No. Not that either. Oh my gosh. aka.ms/shoes goes to the Microsoft official homepage. Did you know this? Look at that. That's a thing.
Yes.
Thanks so much to our new follower. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your name, but I really appreciate you joining us. I look forward to seeing you in the chat room. Scott R. And that's just a picture of a guy in a red shirt. So, yeah. Hunt R. Okay, that could be a thing. Sure. Version of the .NET.
That's the same error we got before.
Core SDK. Okay. And I like that I can still use global JSON to be able to pin a version of the .NET SDK. I can say, everybody that's going to compile this, we expect you to use this version that that might be in preview, right? So that even if preview 5 comes out, projects that are still working on preview 4 are kind of enforcing and using the older version until it's updated and it's proved compatible with the new version. Thanks for downloading.
So, it does appear that it's still broken. But at least it gives you a decent error message now. It used to fail with a whole screen full of garbage.
Okay.
I will
It's a better error message, but it's not perfect.
not perfect.
Okay.
And,
Previews.
And
All
you,
previews.
and you can do the. I will research this today and come up with
There
an
you
answer.
go.
I will get back to you by the end of the day with how to work around this, so you can do this.
So we're going to share. We'll make sure that we share that information out either on Twitter or maybe even on a stream here. I'll be back again on Friday.
But we at least made the error message not be awful.
Yeah, the error message is not awful. That's a better thing. Tell you what, can you do me a favor there, chat room? Can you grab a quick clip of that last minute or so where Scott was showing the error message so that we can be sure to share that with some of our engineering friends so they can kind of see the experience that we had and be able to go in and dig in a little bit further.
And I could probably go crazy here and do this.
So this is the same capabilities we have on Windows to be able to use the preview track for Visual Studio.
Right.
We can do the same thing on Mac, and we can bring in those preview versions when we're ready for them, and we want to test things early.
It might take too long on this hotel Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
but I was going to try it and see if I actually jump to the preview.
No, you're going to kill the stream here, dude. Downloading Visual Studio.
The Visual Studio for Mac is good at not telling you how big the downloads are. Mm-hmm. The details don't have download sizes.
Yeah, it's going to take a little bit.
I could be pulling 30 gigs and we would have no idea.
You have no idea. It just suddenly happens. Yeah. Binary Chef says, I didn't think about looking in the preview channel. We're going to try and confirm that and see about...
We'll
maybe-
confirm that. I don't know if I can stay until this is done, but
No. I don't think I can stay either. My gosh. So this is really great. We see all these things, and I want to touch briefly on .NET 5.
yeah.
So let me come back out of the Mac here. Let's come back to just the two of us. So .NET 5, we know that that's going to be coming out because of the new announced cadence. It'll come out next fall.
Right.
But it's different. We're making that step up, and we're going to see, I believe it was worded as the unification of runtimes.
Right. Well, it's funny. We were Scott Hanselman and James and I were all arguing about this on Monday before we did or actually Sunday before we did the talk on Monday.
Okay.
Do our customers even know what a runtime is?
It's a good point.
And it led to another interesting question, which is
Do you really need to know what a runtime is?
exactly. That's we went down a funny path here because we. The other one is the initial slide that I was going to show for .NET 5 basically said JIT plus AOT.
Thank you, Robert Tables, for grabbing that clip. We'll make sure that we share that with our friends on the .NET team so they can follow up a little bit.
And so it was interesting. We had a conversation. We ended up saying we changed the slide instead of saying AOT, which stands for ahead of time compile. We changed it to native. Because
Okay.
ahead of time compile even doesn't really convey what it really is. When you AOT something, what that really means is there is no compilation occurring when you run the application. Everything is actually at machine code.
You don't have that just-in-time compile that we get from C# and .NET that we've expected in
Right.
.NET Framework.
There is no just-in-time. The
Sure.
bits laid on the disk are the actual bits that are going to run
on the machine.
on the machine, and that's it.
Just like we get from Xamarin apps that we compile for iOS.
But would you think AOT is good for that or native? Native felt more natural to us, so we changed it to native because a native C++ app does not do that.
Yeah.
So then we had another interesting part of this thing is I was talking to Mr. Hanselman and I'm saying I don't think people know what JIT is, and he goes no Scott, you're wrong.
Oh,
and
my
and
goodness.
so we're in the speaker room at Build, and I go ask the people in the corner over there if they know what JIT is. These are some
Okay, but hang on. Before we say what it is, chat room, if you know what JIT is, do me a favor and put into the chat room, put the number 1 in the chat room for us so we can see who knows what JIT is. Don't search on the web with Bing or Google or your other favorite things. Thanks, Devin Rader, of course. I expect you to know what that is. Dear Lord. And CLW, of course. Carrie Payette, of course. But the folks that are writing this are some of our more advanced folks?
I was going to say, in the case of who I asked Mr. Hanselman to go talk to, it was a bunch of younger programmers
Okay.
in a room.
Yes.
And he came back, and they go, we don't know what JIT is, and we don't care.
Ah, okay.
They said, we just build programs, and we run them, and they run.
So, folks, if you're in the chat room and you don't know what JIT is, drop an F in the chat room so we can see just how many folks are going by that don't know what it is. The letter F, so that we can see get a little visual there if you don't know what JIT is. So there, and it's perfectly fine.
And it's fine.
And you're right. We might be at a point with the tooling where I don't.
They asked the question. They actually asked the question to Scott. They're like, why would I care?
Sure.
So Scott, James, and I sit together, and we're like, well, why would they care?
Sure.
And we're asking ourselves, well, in reality, the JITted applications, like an ASP.NET Core application, it'll run faster than a native compiled application.
Yep.
Because we can actually JIT multiple times.
Yeah.
We can go, hey, this execution path gets run a lot, and we can optimize for that one execution path.
Right.
When we native compile, it doesn't know what's going to be the hotspot in the application. So it doesn't know how to optimize for a particular piece.
Right.
And so you get better startup time, and you might get a smaller memory footprint because you don't have to boot a jitter up.
Right.
But versus if you're building a web application and you want the ultimate performance, you probably want to be jitted.
Yes. So, right, and some of the folks are posting what it is in the chat room. That's right, Genescu, it is just-in-time compilation. We build into that bytecode that will then just-in-time compile when it launches the first time.
Right.
And no, it's not Jeff interviews Twillions. And
I like that.
And thank you. And Jameson, it's not Git. No, and I see the kappa there being sarcastic. Thank you. But it's a way for us to deliver something that's not quite all the way compiled, and based on your machine, your processor architecture, will add that last compilation right at.
Well, that's one of the cool parts about the IL that we have is the IL is machine independent.
Yes.
So I can send you a bunch of IL, and the jitter will then compile that natively onto an ARM processor if you're on an ARM processor, a 32-bit Intel processor if you're on a 32-bit Intel processor, a 64-bit Intel processor. Yeah. So that's kind of the cool part about.
It'll adapt appropriately.
It adapts.
And for folks in the chat room that aren't familiar with the acronym IL, that's the intermediary language, right?
Yes.
So that step just before the just-in-time compilation runs. We'll ship that, and it'll compilate. No, Robert Tables, choosy moms don't choose JIT. Carrie, so I've been using this quote "darn Skippy" so much on stream. Yeah, there you go. That's a common line that I've been echoing out there.
But so when you say two runtimes, first off, what is a runtime? Yes. And then how do we define when a developer would choose between JIT and native?
Right.
We were asking ourselves these questions, and we didn't have the answers to them.
I don't think many developers, as an overall thought, or when you think about just a framework, I don't think they would be able to say 100% of the time, I'm building a web app, I want to compile and use this model of tool. I don't think they.
And so it'll be an interesting challenge for us as we get closer to the .NET 5 release. Is how do we expose technically the two runtimes to the developer, and when would they choose one over another? Now, in some cases, it's very obvious. If you want to build an app, a mobile app that runs on iOS, you have to build a native app. And that's because Apple, for security purposes, does not want applications to be generating code on the fly.
Sure. My gosh, the code that they could add in last second would be crazy.
They want to be able to statically analyze and make sure your app's not doing something bad. And if it's dynamically generating code, you can't do that. The UWP went through a similar phase as well when it first came out, where if you're building a .NET native-based UWP application, there's a bunch of capabilities in .NET that were turned off.
Okay.
Mainly because they didn't want the app to be able to change itself on the fly. They were hoping, once again, to be able to statically analyze the apps for security issues.
Be able to run through thousands of those quickly without having human intervention.
Which makes sense.
It does.
You might want to use native as well if you're running on a super small IoT device.
Oh my gosh, yes. Raspberry Pi.
Right. You don't have a lot of disk space, and so you want to link out all the .NET Core you're not using. and maybe you're trying to run in a ultra secure environment, and you want to dial off and say you can't dynamically generate code as well.
Right. Right.
But it'll be a challenge for us. .NET 5. One of the benefits of .NET 5 is we do get both of those runtimes. We get the JIT runtime that .NET Core is based on, and we get the AOT runtime that the Xamarin Tech uses.
So AOT would also be used for things like WebAssembly and Blazor client side.
That'll be the first time you'll see some .NET 5 bits is going to be in the WebAssembly space. So
Okay,
we had hoped, this is true story. We'd hoped to actually have a demo at Build that basically was going to show Fibonacci running in WebAssembly, running in JavaScript, and then running in WebAssembly on C# side by side, so you can actually see the perf difference between the JavaScript code and the C# code.
Okay.
And it was going to be the first time we were going to show the first parts of .NET 5. It's the work that the Mono team is doing to get WebAssembly working. But as Daniel Roth told me, it ran for a quarter of a millisecond and blew up. And they it's
preview. It's not even preview. It's in alpha. It's in nightly build.
It is nightly build alpha, and they said it was going to take them. The hotel Wi-Fi is so bad, Jeff, that
you are.
This is not going to
failed out there.
Well, I'll have to just give you feedback afterwards.
Sure. I want to call out to Sean of the Dev here in the chat room. This is great. Only been in .NET for 2 years, coming over from an ancient proprietary language framework I will not mention. Thanks so much for joining us, Sean of the Dev. We really appreciate that, and I hope you're enjoying your .NET experience. There's so many things that you can do with it, and we're going to encourage and empower you to do a heck of a lot more. And .NET 5 is just one piece of the puzzle.
I want to talk about one more piece of .NET 5 before I have to go run.
Yeah, please. I do too.
We, I said web forms. .vvm is a solution for a web form customer, and Blazor is a solution for a web form customer.
Yep.
We had just briefly brought up the GRPC template in Visual Studio before we switched to the Mac.
Yeah.
And that is a contract-based RPC. Very similar to a WCF in many ways, where you have a contract.
Let me just make sure we unpack those acronyms for some of the younger folks that haven't used those things. So RPC, remote procedure call.
Yes.
So you can make a call to another machine and say, go run some code. WCF is the Windows Communication Foundation libraries and frameworks that run on all versions of Windows, going back to, Vista?
Yeah, we shipped WCF as part of .NET 3.5 or 3.0. 3.0.
Okay, yeah.
It was .NET 3.0.
And that was Vista.
And it was Vista, I think. Yeah.
So it's been around for a long time. Okay. So those two frameworks, how do they play together? Or do they?
gRPC and WCF?
Yeah.
They don't play together.
Okay.
WCF, it lets you actually change the way it would talk to stuff. So, for example, you could use SOAP. You could use binary. Later on, they added REST and JSON.
Yeah.
So it had a variety of ways of, and we had other RPC mechanisms in .NET like remoting, and that was primarily binary. Was that one did too? But it had some dials. But they're basically, I want to call an API on another machine, and WCF is great for the most part if you want to call from .NET to .NET.
Yeah. Sure.
With REST support added later, you could do stuff that was more, cross-device than when we first started.
Cross-development framework at that point.
Right.
You could call into Java.
You could call, Java could call into a REST endpoint. SOAP was the same way as well. If you were doing SOAP, it's a pile of XML, but there's lots of frameworks that do XML. But most of our smartphones and stuff don't have a SOAP stack in them. Or
no.
gRPC is interesting to me because it's actually crosses a bunch of technologies.
Okay.
So you can build a gRPC server in .NET, and you can call it from Java. A customer could build a gRPC server in Java, and we could easily call it from .NET. So we're kind of embracing gRPC because it's across all the languages. So if you build a service with this, it's very easy to call across all the languages using binary-style connections, so it's very fast.
Cool.
But it's very similar in form to WCF, meaning that in WCF you make a contract, that's your interface.
And then you end up generating a client.
A client for that.
Okay.
And they're kind of tightly bound together. gRPC gives you that same programming model, but it does it across all the languages, which makes it kind of cool.
So these are similar technologies that it might make sense to check out gRPC if you're using WCF.
I was going to say you might want to check that out.
Cool.
then let's go to workflow. So workflow is the final one, and it's my favorite one of these. Workflow.
Windows Workflow.
Windows Workflow. All the source code for WCF, Windows Workflow, it's all been in the .NET reference source code for many, many years.
So source of .NET. If you go to that URL, you'll actually get to the source code of .NET.
.NET. And we changed the license on that a couple of years ago, back in the .NET Core, when .NET Core first came out, saying that you can do whatever you want to do with that source code. That source code is free to be copied and pasted and whatever. And so some of the community went and took workflow out of that source code and ported it to Core.
Nice.
And there's a Core F project in GitHub that actually is a .NET Core port of Windows Workflow.
Windows Workflow. Nice.
They reached out to me in December saying, we can't make one piece of it work because there's a piece of XAML that's not open sourced. And so I went and open sourced all the XAML files that were missing in the reference source code when I heard this. And so,
very cool. There's that community collaboration again.
You tell me something's missing, I'll go fix it.
Fantastic.
And so now there's a full implementation of Windows Workflow out there for Core.
Okay.
So what's going on right now is we are having discussions with some community members right now about doing something very similar for WCF.
Okay.
In fact, I'm going to leave here in a second to go actually meet some of those people that are on the build showroom floor.
Nice.
And we're having a discussion. If we can find some community leaders that want to steward an open version of WCF out there in GitHub, we'll contribute to it and we'll help. But we can't do it all ourselves. If there's enough people that want that and want to work on that, we did, as I said, we investigated porting all the frameworks. So we have a partial internal port of some of this stuff where we at least get the basis of WCF running up on top of Kestrel.
Oh, yeah.
I'm willing to donate that code to a project as long as there's people out there that want to steward the project.
That will manage it and drive it forward.
So we're going to go meet with some of them right now, and maybe we'll have an announcement in a couple of days if that happens.
That'd be great.
I don't want to get people's hopes up too high. I mean, this is early days.
We're having the discussion.
We're having discussions.
Absolutely. Sequel Mr. Magoo says, I wish Scott worked with the Office team. He could fix protected tables. I don't know if I can help you there.
We have plenty of .NET issues to work on, so I don't have enough cycles to go
over and help out the office folks. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Slateboard, for the kind words. I always want to make sure that we bring in some great guests to talk and answer all of our questions from chat and level up the community. Get them the information they need so you can be productive and be great developers out there.
But I've got to run to the showroom floor and do
I've
some
got
of
to
this
wrap
stuff.
up and start heading over there as well. I've got that Visual Studio presentation in about an hour. So I think we're going to call it here, friends. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to set up... Is there somebody out there I can raid real quick? Do you know what a raid is? Ed's already started?
He should be. Let's check.
Let's check and see. I hear Ed is starting. He's not quite started yet.
Sorry about that.
Let's give him a nudge. Somebody send him a text message and say, Ed, hurry up and get started. Fritz will raid you. Let's see if any of our live coders friends are out there.
And I didn't plan to come here the right way because I would have brought a hat. I've got
I've
got the Visual Studio hat and I've got the C# hat, and I didn't bring either one, so they're in
my gosh. So and we're gonna do a thing. Very, very soon.
And where's that blazer hat?
The blazer hat. It's over here. Give me 1 second. That one?
Look at this. This is a...
That is a fine garment.
This is a fine hat.
Look at that. Look at that. Absolutely. Oh my goodness.
If you don't see Fritz on Twitch for a while, it's because I'm gonna strangle him until he gets me a hat. So I was so saddened to see that hat on Twitter, and I'm like, I
want that one. Well, I know where they make more of them. So I always like to raid folks at the end of the stream. It's kind of like how when you're listening to radio, we send folks from one stream, from one show onto the next. I'm just going to scroll down here and see if any of our friends are out there that we can raid real quick. Oh my gosh, our buddy InstaFluff is out there right now streaming. Let's make sure that we say hello to our friend InstaFluff. He's another member of our Live Coders group. He wrote an extension for Twitch that will automatically translate the chat room.
Oh, cool.
So whatever you're typing in there, it'll automatically translate to the preferred language of the chat room. It's really great stuff. So raiders, folks in the chat room, get ready for the raid. If you're a subscriber, go ahead and copy that top line of text. If you're not, that's okay. Grab the second line of text, and we're going to set up to raid our friend InstaFluff in just a second. That's not how you spell his name. I forgot the A. There we go. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you very much, Scott. This has been great. And get ready to say hello to InstaFluff. You don't have to do anything. Everybody will be magically taken over there. And let's fill up his chat room with all of our text messages. It's been great, everybody, to see you. I'll be back here in about an hour, hour and a half, and we'll be working with the Visual Studio folks.